The world of technology is constantly evolving, which means there's always an opportunity to learn and grow.
My name is Oyebode Esther. I studied religious studies at the University of Ibadan.
My name is Ifeoluwa. I studied cell biology and genetics in the University of Lagos, after which I got a job working in the bank.
My name is Regina Taiwo. You wouldn't believe I studied architecture in school.
I knew there was more, so I decided to take a leap. Currently, I am a product designer and a product manager.
I'm currently a motion graphics designer.
Presently, I am a data scientist and an AWS cloud engineer.
I understand that being a lady is not a disadvantage, so I embrace tech.
And I am thriving as a Texas.
And I am thriving as a Texas.
Now I can say I'm a thriving Texas.
Are you ready to break new grounds and join the world of tech? The Ladies in Tech Africa initiative is a commemorative bootcamp in honor of our visionary, Pastor Mrs. Folú Adeboye, as we join her in thanking God for her 76th birthday celebration. This program is designed to help you make your career shift a reality. Registration is open and you can register via the link on your screen right now.
Have you ever wondered how your favorite apps work their magic without slowing down your phones? Or how do businesses store massive amounts of data without filling up the entire room? The answer is in the cloud. Hi, my name is Yesterday. Imagine renting computer power, storage, and software from the internet instead of buying and maintaining your hardware. That's cloud computing. It's like having a super-powered computer at your fingertips whenever you need it. Why is cloud computing such a big deal? Well, it's like having a genie in a bottle. You get to focus on your business while the cloud handles the tech stuff. Plus, it saves you money, improves flexibility, and scales with your need. The cloud is growing faster than a fluffy cloud, and that means amazing career opportunities from cloud architects and engineers to security experts and data analysts. The cloud world is buzzing with possibilities. Ready to dive into the cloud? Our course will take you on an exciting journey. You will learn about different cloud models, how to design and deploy cloud applications, and master essential cloud platforms like AWS, Azure, and GCP. Are you ready to unlock the power of the cloud? Join our course and become a cloud expert. Subscribe to this YouTube channel and follow us on all our social media platforms.
The world of technology is constantly evolving, which means there's always an opportunity to learn and grow.
My name is Oyebode Esther. I studied religious studies at the University of Ibadan.
My name is Ifeoluwa. I studied cell biology and genetics in the University of Lagos, after which I got a job working in the bank.
My name is Regina Taiwo. You wouldn't believe I studied architecture in school.
I knew there was more, so I decided to take a leap. Currently, I am a product designer and a product manager.
I'm currently a motion graphics designer.
Presently, I am a data scientist and an AWS cloud engineer.
I understand that being a lady is not a disadvantage, so I embrace tech.
And I am thriving as a Texas.
And I am thriving as a Texas.
Now I can say I'm a thriving Texas.
Are you ready to break new grounds and join the world of tech? The Ladies in Tech Africa initiative is a commemorative bootcamp in honor of our visionary, Pastor Mrs. Folu Adeboye, as we join her in thanking God for her 76th birthday celebration. This program is designed to help you make your career shift a reality. Registration is open and you can register via the link on your screen right now.
Okay. All right. Good evening, everyone. Good evening, good evening, good evening, everyone. Can we all hear me? Can everyone hear me? Can we please let me know if you can hear me? Okay, so I think we can hear me. All right, thank you very much. Okay, good evening, everyone. It's a pleasure to be here once again. I trust that our day went well. All right, thank you very much. For the person asking if this is product design class, no, this is not product design class. This is cloud computing class. So, all right. So once again, welcome everyone. How was our day? Mine was stressful, but fine. Thank God. Yeah. So let's just get right into it. I think we have enough people to start now. From what I'm seeing, I think we have enough people on ground. Okay, so before we go into today's topic, I'm sure we can already see what we're going to be discussing today on my slide. Can we all see my slide too? So that I don't go too far and then hear that, oh, we've not been seeing your slide. Can everyone see my slide? Can see, you can hear me, everything is fine. Okay, all right, thank you very much. Thank you so much. Okay, so before we go into today's teaching, like today we're going to be talking about AWS identity and access management. So before we go into this topic, can anyone give me a recap of what our amazing tutor, facilitator, coach, as we call him, Mr. Moses talked about on Monday? Like a recap. Anyone? What did he teach us on Monday? I know some people have gone to go and quickly look at their notes to see what it was that they were taught. Nobody? Huh. All right. If you can, please just put it in the chat what exactly it was that you you learned or you picked from Monday's class. Just one more minute. Thank you very much. Yes, AWS shared responsibility. Security rules of AWS and customer. Interesting. Oh wow. Okay, so did you people go and do expo? Did you have to go and carry your notes, or it was there? We all remembered. Okay, so I've seen that all of us or most of us remembered, so we can move on to today. So yes, he talked to us about shared responsibility in the cloud, right? How AWS is in charge of security of the cloud, basically the infrastructure, and you as a customer, right, are in charge of security in the cloud. Excuse me. So basically, whatever it is that you put in the cloud is your responsibility to secure it and to safeguard it. While AWS has the responsibility of securing where your resources or your workload is sitting in the cloud. That's the infrastructure, wherever their server is sitting and all of those things. That's the job of AWS. All right, so thank you everyone. So moving on, we're moving to and Honora Happy said no, we didn't. Okay, you did not do expo. Okay. All right, no problem. I believe you. I believe you. Okay. All right, so let's get into today's one. Today we're going to be looking at AWS identity and access management, which we call IAM. It's as short and as simple as that. So whenever you hear me say I am, and I know Mr. Moses has also mentioned it, whenever you hear us say I am, we're talking about AWS identity and access management. So basically, if you look at the diagram on the right hand side of my slide, right, you see the I am, and there are two different arrows. One showing identity and then one showing permissions. So the I am is kind of um, is it divided now into those two uh, components, identity and permission. So those two things are what makes up the AWS IAM, identity and permissions. And you see, as it is here, that you have the users, you have groups, you have roles, you have credentials under identity, and then under permissions you have your policies, and what makes up policies are statements. So those are the things we're going to be looking at this evening. If time and chance permit us, we'll probably do one or two, just very, very few, one or two practical. All right, so going in. Yes, so what is AWS IAM? IAM, I've already said it's identity and access management, right? Is a web service that helps you to securely control access to AWS resources. So the way you have your when you want to log into a site, right? They'll tell you input your password and login credential, username and password, right? So they have something at the back end that is controlling the workflow of that username and password. That is what AWS IAM is for AWS resources. So this is what controls access to AWS resources in the cloud. I'm hearing that my screen is not uh, bold. Is that my slide is not readable? Oh, is that the case for everyone? Is that the case for everyone? Give me 1 minute. Let me see if I can get it to be boldened. All right, so give me a minute. Let me bolden the fonts. Just give me 1 minute. Give me 1 minute. I'm trying to work on it. Work on the slide so that every one of us can see it. Okay, so let's try again. Is it any better in any way at all? Is it by chance better at all at all? Is the font size still too small? Is it still readable? Okay, I should increase it more. Okay. All right, so just give me a few minutes. Let me correct all of that now. My sincere apologies for this. Problem is, I can't see. On my hand is really boldened, so is it better now? Yeah, no, can you please confirm if it's better in any way? Oh, sorry, I've stopped presenting. I can't see my slide anymore. Okay, let me present again. Okay, so is it better in any way now? Okay. Okay. All right. So I think because I shared my screen into two, I divided my screen into two. That was why it was looking very small. Okay. So we are good to go now, I guess. Everyone. Yeah. Okay. All right. Thank you all very much. Okay. All right. So let's dive in then. Okay. So I said AWS IAM is what controls, your login, your access into the AWS environment, is what determines who gets to access what, right? If you look at the picture on the side, you see that it says who can access what. Basically, that is what the AWS IAM is, right? It's first of all ask the question of who is this person? Is this person authorized to be here? Okay, after we have defined or we have confirmed that this person is authorized to be here, right? Then what can this person, what's the permission that is attached to this person, right? So that permission that is attached to that person is what will determine what the person will be able to access in the AWS environment. All right, so why is it important to study or to learn about the AWS IAM is because is what you use to manage access to your resources. We already mentioned something about security in of the cloud and in the cloud. We said security is what's a shared responsibility. So this AWS IAM is our part of the responsibility. You are the one that's determine who you give access to. You are the one that determine what the person you give access to can access, right? So this is our own part. So it is important that we learn this, that we understand it, that we get a good grasp of it. All right. So what are the key components of AWS IAM that we're going to be looking at today? We have the users, the groups, the roles, policies, permissions, and permission boundary. Right. So those are the things we're going to be looking at. Without wasting any more time, User, the I am user. Now, who or what is an I am user, right? An I am user is an entity that you create in AWS to represent a person or a service that can interact with AWS. So, I am is an entity. It can be a person like yourself, it can be a service that you give access to, right? Now, just like when you like I was giving the example of when you want to sign into a website and it asks you for your credentials, username and password. If you have registered or you have signed up to that particular website, right, you'll be given credentials. So you are a user of that website. The same thing applies here. That's what an I am user basically is. It's somebody that has access, that's been given the access to or the permission to access that particular environment, right? And what are the key points of an I am user? What are the keynotes or component of an I am user? Is that they have credentials like username and password or access keys, right? That's the first thing. An I am user is for you to say you're an I am user, it means you have your credentials. You're going to have your username. You're going to have a password attached to you. So let me go back a bit, right? When you create an AWS account by yourself, right? If you went ahead and created an AWS account by yourself, you become the root owner of that account. Now, when I say a root owner means you are the one that owns it. You are the one that owns that account. You can do and undo in the account. Why? It is your own. So you have that root access, right? You are not a user in quotes. You are the owner of the account at that point. Now, after you've created or the account as the owner of the account, you can now say, oh, I want to give maybe you own an organization, right? So I want to give some of my staff access to this AWS account, maybe because the account belongs to the organization. I want to use this AWS account for the organization. So I want to give some of my staff's access. So I create them as a user, right? Now, when you create them as a user, you create maybe Sheyi, for example, as a user in your AWS account. You are going to tell AWS that this is this person's username, this is this person's password. Now you can also select when you are creating the user that okay, I want this person to be able to change their password so that I won't have access to their password, right? Whenever I give them the credentials. So that is basically what the user is. Number one thing to know that this person is a user, that the user will have their credentials, they will have username, they will have password. And if I mentioned that I am user can be a person or can be a service. If it's a service, the service will probably have an access key, right? That it will be able to use to access the AWS environment. And every user is uniquely identified within the AWS account. Every user. So if you're an organization, you have created your own account, right? And you've added users. You cannot confuse Sheyi's account, Sheyi as a user to Biodun as a user, because they will have they are uniquely identified, right? In the AWS account, excuse me, they are uniquely identified. There's no mix up. Even if two of them are bearing Sheyi, right? There'll be something that will differentiate them in the AWS account, that this person is different from this person. Hope that is clearly understood. All right. So, what are the use case for an I am user? In what scenarios would you say, oh, I'm creating an I am user, right? Use case one will be to create individual users for team members, right? So, say for example, like us now, right? Like the incubator, we're going to create an account for you, right? Now, the accounts we are going to be using for the sake of this training will belong to Incubator. So, Incubator is the owner of the account. You, as a student, will be created as a user in that account, right? So let's say, for example, scenario is you have a development team and each of the team members need access to AWS resources like maybe EC2 instance or S3. What you can do is you're going to have to create an I am user for each of the team members. So just like we are here, right? I say we're going to have to create you people as users in on Incubator's account, Incubator's AWS account, right? We're going to have to create a user account for each and every one of you that is here. and each and every one of you will have your own username and password that you'll be using to log in or to sign into the AWS environment, right? So the first scenario, of course, which I've already mentioned, is like you have a team and you need those teams need access to resources in AWS environment. What's the action you're going to do is that you're going to create an IAM user for each of the team member that will allow them to have their own credentials. And the benefit of that is that there's nothing like, oh, this person used my account to go and do something. Everybody will have their own accounts. Everybody will have their own credentials. So everybody is answerable to their own name. If, for example, you put something in your account and then you've given Sheyi access, you've given Biodun access, and then Sheyi goes to delete something there, Sheyi cannot lie that it is Biodun that went to delete it. Why? Because by the time you check your log, you check the trail of it, it's going to show you that, oh, it was Sheyi that actually deleted this thing, because every user is uniquely identified. It will make it easy for you to manage access and for auditing purposes. Then the second scenario is you have a third party. So you don't only create user for your own organizations alone, right? Say for example, the example of what are they calling it, of Incubator and you as students, right, that I've just given. You are a third party to Incubator account, right? Because you're not an immediate part of the Incubator organization. You're not an employed staff, but you need access to their account at the moment for a purpose. So we'll still have to create you what, as a user, right? So in the case of a third party contractor or third party individuals that need, temporary access, persons, right, to specific resources or AWS resources in your account, what you have to do is create an IAM user for the contractor. In this case, you guys, as the example, create IAM user for the contractor, the third party, students in our own case, right, with specific limited permissions. So one of the things you also find out when we create accounts for you is that you cannot do everything on the account. We'll go into what is going to determine that, right? But you find out that, oh, you wanted to go and maybe use SageMaker to tell you that, oh, sorry, you cannot use SageMaker. You don't have the permissions to use this, right? Because you're not the owner of the account, right? So there has been limits that have been placed on the things that you can do and the places you can go to within the environment. Then the benefit of this is that the third party person will only have access to what you want them to have access to, nothing more. There's nothing like the third party is going to go and look at what does not concern them. If, for example, now we only need someone that is an auditor to come and audit our billing system to see how much it is we're spending on the cloud, I only give that auditor, right, access to my billing arm of AWS. Nothing concerning with my S3, nothing concerns him with my EC2 instance, nothing concerning him with my database. He will only be able to access the billing. So that is one of the use cases for IAM user. Now the next one is IAM group, right? That's IAM group. Now, IAM group is a collection of IAM users. So IAM user, right, is at the basis of the ladder. They are the foundation, basically. IAM group is now a collection of more than one user, right? And what happens is you can put users together in a group to manage them as one unit, just like you have departments, right? You can attach permissions to the group rather than attaching permission to each individual person, right? Now let's look at this picture on the left here. You will see that these are the groups. So let's say I'm the admin of Incubator account, right? I've seen that in Incubator they have their data analysis department, they have their software development department, they have their finance department. Now each of these departments would need different access, right? Now instead of me to say, okay, every developer, oh yeah, I've created you, and now start attaching policy or permission one by one. Maybe in the developers department, they have 20 team members. Security, they have 15 team members. I'll now start attaching developers access or permission to each of the 20. Rather than doing that, what I can do is I'll create a group, on AWS in my account. I'll create a developers group. I'll create a security group. I'll create admin group. Right. Now remember, all of the employees that need access to AWS will already have their user's credential, their username and password. Right. But in terms of what they can now access, what I would now do is I will now attach a policy to the group. I will attach a policy to the group, to each of the group. So whoever it is that I had under this group, I don't need to add that permission again to that person. This person will automatically inherit the permission of the group. So the way it is in this example now, right? Susan is a part of the developers group. It means that whatever permission, if the permission I have put here is that developers can only access AWS Lambda, right? They can only use AWS EC2. That's the only permission I gave them. That is the only permission that Susan will get to. Why? Because she's under this group. If I have given security group the access to say, okay, you have access to CloudWatch, you have access to the logs and all of those things, but you don't have access to EC2. The only thing Dave will be able to access in the AWS environment is CloudWatch, right, and the logs. Why? Because that is the group it belongs to. So users under the group automatically inherit the permission of the group. Automatically, they inherit the permission of the group. Now, permissions can be added to individual users, right? But once I put a user under this group, this user will automatically inherit this group's permission. I hope it's clear. I hope we're getting it. Can I move on? Let's take it slow this night. Let's bit by bit. Did we get that part? Can I move on? Okay. All right. Thank you very much. Okay. So one thing to also note, right, is the fact that somebody said no. Okay, just be dropping your questions in case you are not clear yet, right? And then I'll come back to visit it, right? One thing to also note in case of IAM group is that as a user, you can belong to more than one group, right? Let's say, for example, Susan is in software development department, right? But because she knows how to work with data, she's also in the data department. Now, on my AWS account, right, I need to create software development group and data team group. I've created software development, I've created data. Now, Susan is in software development, the same thing as in data. What will happen? I'm going to add Susan to this group. I'm going to add Susan to this group. So even though she is just one user, she can belong to more than one group. So she's going to inherit the permissions of developers, she's going to inherit the permission of security, or whatever group that it is that you had her to. Hope that is making sense. So as a user, you can be added to more than one group. What's the benefit, right, of groups? It helps you to manage a large number of people. Like I said, that we're going to be creating new people, right? What I'll probably just do, rather than start attaching permission to each and every student, what we're probably going to do is to create a group called students in AWS, Incubator's AWS environment, right? And then look at all the permissions that we want to give to all the students and attach it to students group, so that as we are adding you to that group, you are automatically inheriting the permissions of that group. Whatever the group permission allows is what you can do. Whatever the group permission does not allow, you cannot do it. Hope that makes sense. Now, use cases, right? Managing permissions for a development team. Let's say you have multiple developers who need the same level of access to various services, like I've already explained, right? What you can do is create an IAM group name that is called developers, and you attach the policy to that group, and then you begin to add all the users that belong to the developers department under that group. And what's the benefit is that it simplifies permission management. You will not need to waste time to start creating policy permission for each and every person. There'll be no need to stress yourself, so to say. So it helps you to manage better. Use case two is your differentiating access level within a team, right? Let's say your operation team has different level of access requirements, such as the admin only needs full access to the resources, while operators only need read-only access. What does read-only access mean? Say, for example, now S3, we said S3 is a storage service, right? So me, I'm admin, right? Or I am the head of data team, right? So I am the admin for data team. Now when I want to create the team, I've created data admin and then data team members. So me as the admin, I have full access to S3, which means I can create a bucket, I can delete a bucket, I can what else can I do? I can manage, I can update it, I can do whatever it is that I want. I can add a bucket, right? I can do anything. I have full access. Now, for my team members, the only thing they can do is to read. So, whatever bucket is there, they cannot create. They are not allowed to create anything. They are not allowed to delete anything. They can only have access to see what is in my S3 storage. So, when they open the S3 storage, they'll see that, oh, we have this particular data in our S3 bucket. That is all they're allowed to do. So when you have varying level of access like that, you can also create groups. So that way you had, okay, I'm going to create the action here, right? As I wrote is you're going to create two groups, admin and read-only operations group. So under the admin group, you give admin group, full permission to S3 bucket, and then you give read-only access to the read-only group. And what's the benefit of that? Is that every team member will have correct level of access. There's nothing like you are seeing what you're not supposed to see. There is nothing like somebody have mistakenly go and delete what they are not supposed to delete. If it does not have the right to delete it, it will not be able to delete it because that permission was not given to his group. Praise God. I'm always tempted to say praise God. Don't mind me, I'm a church girl. And I believe we're all church children, we're Jesus babies. All right. Next one is I am role. Now, so far so good. Hope I've been able to help you understand and not to confuse us, right? If there's anything that you're confused about, just take note of it, be writing it down. You can you can be writing it down, right? Somewhere so that you don't forget in case you have a question that will take it during the question time. So the next one now is I am roles. I am roles. So we've spoken about I am user. We've spoken about I am group. The third one we're talking about now is the I am roles. Now, what's the I am role? Is an identity that you create in your account with specific permissions. This is just a broad definition. Let me put it in my own way, in my own words, right? Is assuming a role is like is an identity that you give to a user or a service to take on a particular role. Is temporary. If you look at the key points here, I say that there are roles that are used to delegate access to users, applications, or services. They do not have long-term credentials. So for I am roles, you are not creating password. Excuse me. You are not creating password and username. No, they only have temporary access. Say, for example, right, this is EC2 instance. EC2 instance is a service in AWS, right? S3 bucket is a service in AWS. Now, EC2 instance, maybe for some reason you have an application that you deployed on EC2 instance. Remember we said EC2 instance is your virtual machine, like, right? It's like a server, while S3 is a storage. Now, those two things, they don't have business together normally. But now let's assume that I have deployed an application on this EC2 instance, and the application that I have deployed here, the data that it needs, right, is inside this S3. Now, since we have said both of them are individual entity, they're not supposed to, nothing supposed to bring them together. They should be minding their business. How will EC2 instance get the data that it needs for my application to run? How would it do that? The only way it can do that is to attach a role to it. So the role will say, okay, EC2 instance, so you have been given permission to read what is inside this S3 bucket, or to be able to check what is inside this S3 bucket, or to be able to pull the data from this S3 bucket and give it to the application that is sitting on you. So for temporarily, while that application needs that data, EC2 instance will take that role. It will assume that role. Same thing as a user, right? I would have put a picture here to illustrate it. Say, for example, I gave the example earlier of Susan that is probably in software engineering department. And for some reason, or no, let me even use myself as a typical example. So in my office, I am in the digital advisory department, right? Strictly cloud. Nothing really concerned me with data. But from my previous knowledge, right? I'm a data scientist, right? So I have data knowledge. Now, let's say, for example, my company has a project they are handling, and the data team is choked up. They don't have enough hands. So they need me to, come and assist them for a short while. It does not mean that I'm becoming a part of the data team, right? But just temporarily, maybe for like 2 weeks, they need me to quickly come and join the data team, right? So what will happen is they will give me a role. I'm going to assume a role, right? To say, okay, temporarily, Ife now has access to the things that the data team has access to in AWS for this period of time. Now, when that role is given to me, for that period of time, I am no longer going to be a digital advisory team. I'm going to be operating as a data team member. I'm going to have the access that data team member has. Do we get that? It's just like actors and actresses, right? Maybe normal in your daily life, all you are is a microbiologist, but someone now said that you can act very well, and say, okay, I want you to come and act the role of a doctor. In real life, you are not a doctor, right? But you've been told to come and play the role of a doctor, so you would need the equipment to act that role very well. So those are the permissions that a role will have. So this permission here will be attached to this role. So the role will be added to the person, either the person or the service, right? That will be able to make it carry out the operation that it wants to carry out with whatever service that it needs to carry out the operation. I know that at this point now it's probably beginning to look beginning to look a bit confusing, but do not worry. Do not worry. It's not confusing. Just take your time and digest it slowly. So what are the use cases, right, for IAM role? Number one, I've given the example of EC2 instance accessing S3 buckets, right? So you have an application that is running on S3 that needs to upload file, right? The one I even gave was that it needs to just read the file. Maybe you've created an application that people will upload their picture to your application, right? And then no matter how big the picture is, it will shrink the picture. The application will shrink the picture, right? And then give the user back a shrinked copy of the picture. Now, for EC2, the application to be able to do that, it needs to access the S3, right? Where it's going to be uploading those pictures that are sent to it to the S3. But it cannot do that except it has a role. You can't give it a user permission, you cannot give it credential, you cannot give it a password and username, right? So what you will do is that you're going to create an IAM role, giving it S3 rights permission. S3 rights permission means I'm giving you right to upload something to this S3 bucket. Then you assign that role to the EC2 instance where your application is launched, right? You're not going to apply that role to all the EC2 instance you've ever created in this life. Just that EC2 instance where the application that needs to upload something to S3 is running on. That's where you attach that role. And what's the benefit of that is that the instance will be able to access S3 without needing access keys and without having any security risk. There will be no breach of security. You don't need to now make it open to the internet for it to be able to access the S3, right? So that's one of the benefits of the IAM role. What's the second use case, right? Is cross-account access. Maybe your company, your organization has two accounts and they have resources sitting in one account and they have another resource sitting in another account, right? As strange as it may sound, it happens. In short, some organizations implement that. Say organizations that have subsidiaries, for example, maybe they have this group and that group. So each of the groups have their own accounts. They are separate companies under the same group, right? I'm trying to think of a company that operates in that way. Um, like system specs. I don't know how many of us know system specs, right? System specs is an organization, is like a group. Under system specs, you have remitter, you have human manager, right? Now, human manager have their own AWS accounts. Remember, human manager is a company on its own. Remitter have their own AWS account. Now, for some reason, maybe there is now a project where one EC2 instance inside Remitter has to communicate with one S3 instance that is sitting with human manager's account. For that EC2 instance to be able to go to that other person's account, remember the S3 it needs to access is not within his own account, is in another person's account entirely. What you will just do is just create an IAM role in that target account, right? That's the human manager account, and give it the permissions to say, okay, this person that is coming from Remitter has the permission to assume this role. It's going to come and act like it belongs to my account. It's going to assume that role just temporarily. And what's the benefit of that? You can control access without sharing credentials. So human manager does not have to start giving Remitter their own login and password so that they will now come to their own account and start doing whatever they want to do. They can just give them the role. Their resources in AWS will be able to communicate. And once the time they gave to that role has elapsed, the person can no longer access it except you create a new role. So it helps you to maintain that's granular access security within your space. IAM policies. So we're getting closer and closer to the end. Now, permission should have probably come first, but I made IAM policies come first, right? Now, what is an IAM policy? IAM policy is basically the document. When you say something is a policy is a document that contains the rules of something, right? Maybe your office, your dress policy. So there's a document sitting somewhere where they said in our office, so you are only allowed to wear white shirt and black trouser. No other color is allowed. Which means that the day you come to the office and you decide to wear pink trouser, you are violating the rules of the company because there's a document that is there that can attest to the fact that you are not allowed to wear that color. So that's the same thing that a policy is in the cloud. It's a document that defines the permissions. Is that document, it is whatever it is that is in the policy, whatever you have written in that policy that will determine the kind of permission that somebody would have. It is whatever it is that is in the policy that will determine the kind of permission that the person will have. And there are two types of policies, right? There's managed policies. Now, managed policies is basically, it can be AWS managed or customer managed. And when I say AWS managed, so AWS has come together, they've written some set of policies for different resources. So instead of you just starting to write by yourself, you can just go through that policy and say, okay, this match exactly what I want, and then you use it AWS is the one that wrote it. You don't have to stress to start writing, right? Or it can be customer managed, which means you wrote your own by yourself. You've gone through AWS managed resources and like, none of their policy really fits what I want to do, or the permission I want to give to this user, right? So you decide to write your own. Now, inline policy is embedded directly into a user. It's not a full something like that. It's, you can just it's like they say something is inline. It's just for the time being, just as directly to the user or to the group or to the role. You don't have to manage it. It's not as comprehensive as a managed policy. It's something that maybe somebody has to just access one small thing. You just quickly write up something and then you attach it to the person, basically. Now, what are the key components of a policy? When you see a policy, if you can see the picture on my left hand side, right, this is a sample of a policy. This is a very simple policy. There, if you open some policies, right, they are they are huge. They contain permissions and permissions, allow this, deny this, and so on and so forth, right? So components of a policy is the action. A policy has to have action, it has to have the resource, it has to have the effect and the condition, right? Now, action, what does action mean? Action means what is that thing that you want to allow or to deny, right? And here I said example is S3 put object. S3 put object is basically you are allowing the action I want this thing to either allow or to deny is for you to be able to put. I'm either allowing this person to be able to put something in my S3 bucket, or I'm denying that person the ability to put something in my S3 bucket. Now, resources, you have to specify the resources, right? So maybe the resource you're talking about is an S3 bucket, right? So you have to say, I'm allowing you to be able to put something in this S3 bucket. So you put the name of the S3 bucket, the particular S3 bucket. Now, what is the effect? This is very important, and it can be either of two things. It is that you are allowing or you are denying. Excuse me. It's either you are allowing or you are denying. Now, optionally, you can also put conditions. Or I forgot to add, I was going to add the condition aspect here, right? You can add conditions. So just like you can say, um, I'm writing a policy, right, that every student of cloud computing class in Incubator right now are allowed to come and visit me in my house, right? What's the action? The action is that, well, they're allowed to come and visit me. I did not say they should enter my house. Remember, that's another action. So you might come and visit me and stay outside. So I've said they are allowed to come and visit me, right? The resource is what? My house. So to my house, right? The effect is what? Allow, not deny. They are allowed. Now I can now add a condition and say, under the condition that they are coming with one pack of juice each. So which means that when you are coming to my house, if you are not coming with a pack of juice, you are not allowed to come and visit me, right? So that is what a condition is. It's optional. I can decide to put it. I can decide not to put a condition. So if I don't put a condition, it means that everybody is allowed to come. If you decide to buy juice, if you decide not to buy juice, because I did not put that condition. So if you open an AWS IAM policy, this is what it's going to look like, right? This is what you write. They call this JSON format. So an IAM policy is usually in a JSON format. Now, don't be scared if you cannot write JSON. And the good thing about AWS, right, is that you can always find the example of these policies. If you are looking for policy to write for something, just research on it. You'll find an example that you can modify to what you want to do. But it's a good thing to also learn how to write it. Also, is there's point and click. You can just decide that this is what I need and click on the service that you want, and it will write the policy for you. If what it wrote suits you, you're good to go. You use it. Now, this is what the policy of AWS IAM policy, the structure looks like. it will have the version, and the version is the policy language version, which is always usually the newest version. If you go to create a version, a policy now, this is what you're going to meet there. This is the current version, yes, 17/10/2022. That is the updated version of this policy, right? Then the a generally, right, a policy will have the version and the statement. The version and the statement. Now, it is in that statement that all of these components are contained. It is within this statement that all these other components, action, resources, effects, will now fall in. So this statement, remember I said this is a very simple policy, right? I can decide to add another statement under. So this statement contains the SID identifier, right? It is optional. In short, I think I've only seen it in policies I've created in recent times. I've only seen it in probably one of my policies, right? The other ones, so it's very, very optional. You don't have to put it. Is an identifier. Now, the things that are compulsory is the effect, the action, the resource. Those ones, if you don't put it, this policy will not be created, to tell you invalid. So let's break down what this policy here is saying. It said the effect is what? Allow. The effect is allow. What is the action? The action is EC2 start instance. EC2 start instance. That is the action, right? Resource is asterisk. Now, anytime you see asterisk, right? Asterisk means all. Asterisk means all. So I remember last week Mr. Moses told us about services and resources. So this is one of the places where it comes to play in, right? So resource is Mr. Moses told us last week, right? Resource is something that you do within a service. So the service is there. Let's say, for example, the service is S3. S3 is a storage service, right? Now, if I create a bucket in S3, maybe I create a bucket for students where I'm going to be storing students' name, buckets, students named bucket, and I create another bucket for teachers. Now, each of those buckets are a resource within my S3 service, right? Now, here I can decide that the resource will only be for one bucket. But once I put this asterisk, what I mean is whatever resources is within that service, allow. So breaking this down is allow this user, whoever the user you attach this policy to, will be allowed to start in situ instances. Whoever the user that you attach this policy to, that user will be allowed to start EC2 instances for any EC2 resources. So action is what you are trying to do. What is it that you are trying to do? So this person will only be able to start instances. This person cannot delete instances according to this policy. We're going to go there, see how permission flows, right? This person cannot delete instance. The person is only allowed to start instance. And the effect of this policy is what? Is to allow. The person is not denied. You can put deny there. If you put deny, it only means that this person cannot start, is not allowed to start policy, right? Now, what's the use case for an IAM policy? Again, you can use to restrict access. An IAM policy can be attached to a user, can be attached to a resource, can be attached to anything, right? That is what gives permission, basically. So it is the bane of everything. It's the basis of every single thing. So our use case one is restricting access to a specific S3 bucket. Maybe you want to give a user access to only one S3 bucket. Like I said, I have a S3 bucket that contains students' data. I have S3 buckets that contains, I have S3 bucket that contains students' data. I have S3 bucket that contains teachers' data. Now, inside teachers' data, I probably have their salary, their date of birth, their marital status, and everything, right? So I want to give one of the students access to S3. But of course, I don't want the student to go and access teachers' information and see what is there. So I can write a policy And in that policy, let's use this policy here as an example. In that policy, my effect would be what? Allow, right? My action would be read S3, right? Then my resource will now be what? That particular S3 bucket. I'll put the name of the S3 bucket there. I'm not going to use this star, because once I use star, it means that what? The person can access all the buckets that is there. So I can use policy to restrict access to what I want that person to have. And what's the benefit of that? The benefit of that is that the user will only have access to the resource that they need, following AWS least privilege principle. I don't know if we've mentioned the principle of least privilege. Basically, what the principle of least privilege means is that you should only give access on a need to have basis. Only give the access that somebody needs to have, not somebody wants to have. If it's left to all of us, we want to have access to everything, right? In our organization, you want to have access to all the data, see all the MD's salary, see all the oga's salary, see everything, right? But because I don't have business with it, so they don't need to give me. So that's what the policy does. It helps you to restrict access on only need to have basis. If this person does not have any business with EC2 instance, there's no need for me to give the person access to EC2 instance. This person does not have business with S3, there's no need for me to give this person access to S3. So that's what policy does. Also, you can use it to enforce MFA. MFA is multi-factor authentication for sensitive operation. Now, what's the scenario? Let's say, for example, you want to ensure that sensitive operations, maybe something like deleting EC2 instance, can only be performed by users that have enabled multi-factor authentication. So I've created users, right? But I only want users that have already enabled this MFA to be the only ones that can delete EC2 instance. If they've not enabled MFA, they should not be able to delete any EC2 instance. All I have to do is go and create an IAM policy. And in that policy, I'm going to put it there that only those that have enabled MFA are allowed to delete EC2 instance. And then I will attach that policy to either that user or to the group, right? Maybe to the group of developers that usually use EC2 instance. I will attach that policy to it. So which means out of all the users in that group, only the users that have already enabled multi-factor authentication will be able to delete. And the benefit is what? It adds another extra layer of security for your critical operations, reducing the risk of unauthorized access. So only those that I have given access to will be able to delete. There will be nothing like, I mistakenly deleted it. If you mistakenly deleted it, I'll know that it's people that I gave access to delete that delete, and then you can come and answer your query with your full chest. It will not be a case of, I gave everybody access and then somebody now went to go and delete. I'm not looking for who deleted up and down. I'm not blaming myself, right? So that's what IAM policy does, creates that extra layer of security. Now, permissions, right? I already said what controls permissions is the policy, right? What controls permission is the policy. So whatever it is that is written in that policy is what controls the permission. Now, permission is now what controls what a group or a user or a role can do. When you attach a policy to a group, a user, or a role, it will grant, it will allow, or it deny the person permission. Now, I already mentioned the least privilege principle, which is one of the key concepts of permissions, right? Grants permission only on a need to have basis, only what the person need to be able to do what the person needs to do. That's the only permission you should give the person. Then there's the concept of explicit deny. If there's an explicit deny means what? Somebody outrightly wrote deny. Deny is going to override any allow. Now, let's look at the flow of permission here, right? This is the workflow. Everything on AWS, once you are created as a user, everything is denied. You don't have access to anything until you are given permissions, until policies or permissions are attached to you. So if we have created you as a user now, right, and we don't attach any permissions to you. Once you open your account, you will not be able to do anything. You click on EC2 instance, it will tell you don't have the permission. Click on S3, it will tell you don't have the permission. So by default, no access is given to you. By default, everything is at a deny. So every decision starts at deny. Now, when I now begin to attach a policy to you, right? What will happen now is when you now go to EC2, you go to EC2's page, right? The dashboard, and you want to create an EC2 instance. What will happen is the IAM will now go back and go and check. Okay, this is the policy these are all the policies. Maybe there's more than one policy that is attached to you. To check all the policy that has been attached to you, no matter how much it is. It will now ask, is there any explicit deny in this policy? That means, is there anywhere in that policy where it says this user Shion, should not create EC2 instance? Right? Maybe, for example, I've already attached a policy that says Shion should not be able um to create EC2 instance, right? Then mistakenly, somewhere down the line, and now it's going to add another policy that says Shion is allowed to create EC2 instance. Now there are two policies, right, conflicting each other. If something like that happens, AWS will go with the deny. It will not go with allow. It will always choose deny over allow. So it will check, is there anything that explicitly says to deny this person of this access? If yes, get out. That's what it will tell you. Pack your bag and go. You don't have permission, right? Once it sees an explicit deny, it tells you to go. But if it checks and it says, oh, there's nothing that says explicitly deny this person, so it will move on. Now, the next thing it will check is there an allow? Right? Is there something that says allow this person to create EC2 instance? Yes. If there's something that says allow this person to create EC2 instance, then it will not do what? Its final decision will be to allow you. Now, there's another part. If it checks and there is no allow, now what does that mean? I've created a policy that says allow this user to use EC2 instance, right? Under it, I've now added also another statement that says allow this user to use EC2 instance and maybe S3, right? So if it gets here, if it checks, maybe you are trying to access S3, it now checks here, it says, oh, is this person allowed to use S3? Yes, it will allow you to use. But say, for example, I did not put S3. I only say allow this user to use EC2 instance. That's the only thing. I did not make any mention of S3. I did not make any mention of any other resources, right? If it checks, is there an allow for this thing? There is no allow. Was there a deny? No, there was no deny. There was no explicit deny, right? So it moves on. Is there an allow? There was no allow. It will deny you, because that's what they call implicit deny. Explicit deny is it was spelled out. Don't allow this user to use a S3 or to delete S3 or to do whatever it is that you don't want it to do, right? That is an explicit denial. Implicit deny means I did not allow you and I did not deny you, but what the system will choose is what it will automatically assume that you don't want that person to have access to it. So that is the workflow. Remember, number one, everything is denied from the beginning. So once permission is attached, if you try to access something, it will first check all of the policy that is attached to you, right? It will now decide, is there something that explicitly says deny this person? If there is, it will deny you. If there is none, it will ask, is there anything that says allow? If there is, it will allow you. If there is none, it will deny you. Hope we are good. Are we good so far? So far, so good. I don't know. Are we still taking a break? Are we still taking a break on Are we taking a break now? Or should I go on? Okay. All right. So let's take a break for our attendance, and then when we'll come back, we'll wrap up. We're almost done. When we come back, we're going to wrap up. So Mr. Josiah, you can put the attendance link. Let us go and fill our attendance. And please let me use this time to also reiterate. Please, if you are yet to register or to sign up to the LMS, please go and sign up. Assignments will start dropping on the LMS platform. Assignments, your quiz, those things will count at the end of the day. So please, if you're having any issues, please reach out to any of the admin. They will assist with it. So the attendance link has been dropped. Please let's fill our attendance. Thank you.
The world of technology is constantly evolving, which means there's always an opportunity to learn and grow.
My name is Oyebode Esther. I studied religious studies at the University of Ibadan.
My name is Ifeoluwa. I studied cell biology and genetics in the University of Lagos, after which I got a job working in the bank.
My name is Regina Taiwo. You wouldn't believe I studied architecture in school.
I knew there was more, so I decided to take a leap. Currently, I am a product designer and a product manager.
I'm currently a motion graphics designer.
Presently, I am a data scientist and an AWS cloud engineer.
I understand that being a lady is not a disadvantage, so I embrace tech.
And I am thriving as a Texas.
And I am thriving as a Texas.
Now I can say I'm a thriving Texas.
Are you ready to break new grounds and join the world of tech? The Ladies in Tech Africa initiative is a commemorative bootcamp in honor of our visionary, Pastor Mrs. Folu Adeboye, as we join her in thanking God for her 76th birthday celebration. This program is designed to help you make your career shift a reality. Registration is open and you can register via the link on your screen right now.
Have you ever wondered how your favorite apps work their magic without slowing down your phones? Or how do businesses store massive amounts of data without filling up the entire room? The answer is in the cloud. Hi, my name is Yesterday. Imagine renting computer power, storage, and software from the internet instead of buying and maintaining your hardware. That's cloud computing. It's like having a super-powered computer at your fingertips whenever you need it. Why is cloud computing such a big deal? Well, it's like having a genie in a bottle. You get to focus on your business while the cloud handles the tech stuff. Plus, it saves you money, improves flexibility, and scales with your need. The cloud is growing faster than a fluffy cloud, and that means amazing career opportunities from cloud architects and engineers to security experts and data analysts. The cloud world is buzzing with possibilities. Ready to dive into the cloud? Our course will take you on an exciting journey. You will learn about different cloud models, how to design and deploy cloud applications, and master essential cloud platforms like AWS, Azure, and GCP. Are you ready to unlock the power of the cloud? Join our course and become a cloud expert. Subscribe to this YouTube channel and follow us on all our social media platforms. Have you ever wondered how your favorite apps work their magic without slowing down your phones? Or how do businesses store massive amounts of data without filling up the entire room? The answer is in the cloud. Hi, my name is Yesterday. Imagine renting computer power, storage, and software from the internet instead of buying and maintaining your hardware. That's cloud computing. It's like having a super-powered computer at your fingertips whenever you need it. Why is cloud computing such a big deal? Well, it's like having a genie in a bottle. You get to focus on your business while the cloud handles the tech stuff. Plus, It saves you money, improves flexibility, and scales with your need. The cloud is growing faster than a fluffy cloud, and that means amazing career opportunities from cloud architects and engineers to security experts and data analysts. The cloud world is buzzing with possibilities. Ready to dive into the cloud? Our course will take you on an exciting journey. You will learn about different cloud models, how to design and deploy cloud applications, and master essential cloud platforms like AWS, Azure, and GCP. Are you ready to unlock the power of the cloud? Join our course and become a cloud expert. Subscribe to this YouTube channel and follow us on all our social media platforms.
The world of technology is constantly evolving, which means there's always an opportunity to learn and grow.
My name is Oyebode Esther. I studied religious studies at the University of Ibadan.
My name is Ifeoluwa. I studied cell biology and genetics in the University of Lagos, after which I got a job working in the bank.
My name is Regina Taiwo. You wouldn't believe I studied architecture in school.
I knew there was more, so I decided to take a leap. Currently, I am a product designer and a product manager.
I'm currently a motion graphics designer.
Presently, I am a data scientist and an AWS cloud engineer.
I understand that being a lady is not a disadvantage, so I embrace tech.
And I am thriving as a Texas.
And I am thriving as a Texas.
Now I can say I'm a thriving Texas.
Are you ready to break new grounds and join the world of tech? The Ladies in Tech Africa initiative is a commemorative bootcamp in honor of our visionary, Pastor Mrs. Folu Adeboye, as we join her in thanking God for her 76th birthday celebration. This program is designed to help you make your career shift a reality. Registration is open and you can register via the link on your screen right now.
Okay. All right. Welcome back, everyone. I want to believe we've all filled the attendance. Please please fill the attendance. It's very, very important. It's very, very compulsory. If I can use that word, it's very compulsory. All right, so let's quickly get back into it. So I've explained IAM permissions. I've explained the flow of how its decision is made, right? How the permission decision is made. Okay, so moving on, there's something interesting that is called the IAM permission boundary. It's like the definition says, right? It's an advanced feature. And what the IAM permission boundary does is that it sets the maximum permission that an IAM identity, right, be it a user or a role, can have. So is what sets the maximum. And how does it work? It's an intersection of policies, right? So the permission granted to an entity at the intersection of the permissions in the permission boundary and the entity's identity-based policy. Now, I know that is a lot. Let's use this diagram here on the side to explain. Is this diagram clear enough? Should I increase the size? Can we all see it? Is the size of the diagram on the left is it big enough? Can we all see it? Um no, okay, so let me increase it. Give me 1 minute. Let me increase it. All right, okay. I suspected that was going to be the case. So give me a minute, let me increase it. Okay. Let me share my screen again. All right, now when you can see my screen, please confirm if it's bigger now, if it's better. Is this slightly better now? No, I should still increase it. Okay, let's just move it. Okay, some are saying it's better. Some are saying I should still increase. Yes, no. Okay, let's do this. Let me just move it to a different page on its own so that it's we can all see it better. So again, give me 1 minute. I mean, that's why we're here, right? Okay, let's move this. So okay, I think this is the biggest we can go. Let me reshare my screen now. Okay. I think this is better. Can we confirm that it is better? Can we confirm that it's better now? Yes. Okay. All right. All right. So let's use this to explain the IAM permission boundary. Right. All right. Thank you. Thank you, everyone. Okay. So I said the IAM permission boundary. What the way it works is it's plays an interjection, right, or an intersect of the permission boundary and the identity based policy. So basically, what that means here is, let's say user Shion, right? When I created user Shion, I created this IAM policy for it, right? In this IAM policy, what I said is the action is be able to any action, carry out any action on which resource, on this my test app DB table. So let's say this is a database, right? In that database, I have created this table. The table is called my test app DDB table, right? So when I created user Shion, I said user Shion, the policy I'm attaching to you is be able to do anything, right? Be able to do anything at all, right? On this table, you can delete it, you can create, you can update, you can put things inside of it, you can remove things from it. Then in whatever region, remember we talked about AWS global infrastructure, right? And say you can put your resources in different regions. So you should be able to do whatever it is you like, right? In on this particular table that I have mentioned here, in any region. So you can create this table, you can update this table because this table is already created. You can update this table, you can delete this table, you can put something in this table, anything, and in any region, be it in North Virginia region. So if this is a global table, which means maybe this table is in North Virginia region, is in Ireland region, it's in South Africa region, right? For example, so be able to do anything on this table in all of those region, all of those region. Now, after I have attached this policy here on my right, I now come and write, I now go to permissions boundary. Now, under my permissions boundary, I now write put, update, delete. Now, what I have just said here is what you are allowed to do as a user is to be able to put anything, to be able to update anything, to be able to delete, resource anything. Remember, resource here is only the table. It was only the table that you are allowed to. So under my permission boundary, I said on any resource, be able to put, be able to update, be able to delete on any resource, as long as that resource is what is in this region, is in this region. Now, what would the permission now do? Remember, we said the flow of permission. So when it comes here to this user, and the user is about to delete something, it will go through what's the policy that is attached. This is the policy that is attached. That policy says this person should be able to do anything on this particular table in any region. But when I now see, I go forward and I say that there's a permission boundary that is set, and that permission boundary is saying that she only be able to put, update, and delete anything as long as it is within this region. So the only permission that it would eventually give you will now be a combination of these two. That's the maximum. That's what it means by it's what sets the maximum policy that you can have. So it's going to merge these two. So this action says all. This one says put, update, and delete. It's going to select put, update, and delete. So it's going to select this one here because this is the one that, remember, the least privilege rule, right? So this gives the least privilege. So it will put that one here. Then it will now say resources. Under the permission boundary, it says all resources. Under permission your IAM identity policy, right? That one says only this table. Least privilege again is going to select only this one. So it's going to select the resources from this part because that's the one that is giving the least privilege. Under region, this identity policy is saying region, but the permission boundary is saying only AWS EU region, that's Europe region, right? So which one is giving the least privilege principle is the permission boundary. So it's going to pick it here. So the permission that user Shion will be able to have is only this one in the middle, which is a mix of these two, depending on the least privilege policy, right? So this is the maximum this person can do. This person will only be able to put, update, and delete this particular table only in Europe region. Even though the identity policy that I attached to him when I created him was all region, but because the permission boundary has said only AWS EU region, and that is the least privilege, so it's going to use only the least privilege. Even though these resources on the permission boundary are said all resources, but because in the identity policy that I attached to you, I only said you can only do any action on the table. So it's going to use least privilege policy and give you only that table. Now, even though in the identity policy that I've originally attached to you, I put all actions, but because the permission boundary that I also attached to you again, I only said put, update, and delete. Least privilege policy again is going to give you least privilege policy of just this one. So this in the middle is going to be the maximum you can do. So it checks here, the permission boundary is what it sets the maximum that you can give, that you can have, the maximum permission you can have as a user, right? Is an intersect of the identity based one and the permission boundary. So this in the middle is what you can have access to. Do we understand that? Do we understand that? Understood. Okay, thank you very much for Insola. All right, so moving on, what's the use case? At what points can I use an IAM permission boundary, right? Scenario one is that you want to limit developers' permissions in a shared environment. So you have developers, and these developers, they need to create and manage resources, but they should not be able to delete key infrastructure resources. So you have given them resource, you have given them the ability to create and manage every resources. You have given them the permission to do whatever it is that they like, right? To create, to manage, but you also don't want them to be able to delete. So what you do is create an IAM permission boundary and say this person can only create, can only manage, don't put delete. So what will happen is that even though originally you had already said they should be able to do anything, don't put delete there. So once you don't put delete, it's going to prevent them, least privilege again, it's going to prevent them from deleting those key infrastructure resources. So the benefit of that is that it can prevent against any malicious deletion or accidental thing happening, right? And keeping uh, the safeguarding your resources basically. Now, what's the second scenario? Is an external user from a partner organization needs limited access to your AWS environment through federated access, right? What you will do is you create a permission boundary that will restrict their action to specific services. If it is only the service that this person only needs is just EC2 and Lambda, you would create permission boundary. So maybe when you created that user, you had already said do anything. You now put a permission boundary that says in the resources EC2 and Lambda. So when the permission workflow is going, it has checked the identity policy that you put. It saw everything. It now moves forward. Now says that there's a boundary there. Boundary says only EC2 and Lambda. So it will only give you the person EC2 and Lambda. So it reduces the risk of over permission. I still made use of this thing just this week, right? Creating a user in my organization that needed access to just some things. But the initial access I'd already given was a lot. So I had to limit it. I had to go and create boundary to say this person can only do this but not do this. Or this person can only should be able to delete but not delete any resource. Should only be able to delete resources that are under this particular service. So that is what the permission boundary is. It determines the maximum, not the minimum, the maximum permission that you can have. The maximum. That's the highest you can go. All right. So what are the best practices for IAM security, right? For the AWS IAM, there are things that you call best practices, the things that AWS recommend that you do. Number one is that when you create a user, you enable multi-factor authentication. And what does that mean? It will add, I hope you all know what multi-factor authentication is. It's like saying after I have put my username and password, send me a code to confirm on my phone number. So when I put that code, you'll be able to know that it's truly me that is actually signing in. So if I don't have my phone with me, or if I'm not the one that is trying to sign in and the person does not have my multi-factor device, they will not be able to sign in. So one of the best practices for what to enable multi-factor authentication. The second one is to use roles for application. So I said you can create user even for application you can, but instead of creating user and then attaching policy again, for applications like your application that is running on EC2 that needs to access S3, instead of creating user for the application, instead use roles. So it will avoid you having to be given access key that in case somebody goes and check your code base, they can see that access key and they can use that access key behind your back and do whatever it is that they want. So rather than using access keys, right, use roles, make use of IAM roles. Also is to also apply the principle of least privilege. Don't give permissions more than necessary. If this person only needs to work with database, don't go and give the person permission for database and for EC2 instance. Give the person access for only the things that they need to be able to perform their task. That is the principle of this privilege, and apply it. In the real world, these things will come in handy because it is only you that know your mind. I was speaking to a client this yesterday, and he was talking about how some of their staff, when they go, they'll go and delete their files, company files, because they were pained that they were fired, right? Those kind of things are issues. If they delete a very important file, you're on your own. So if that person does not have the right to delete, he will not be able to delete. So give access on principle of least privilege. Then also use permission boundary to further fine grain the access. You're giving access, you need to bring it lower and lower again. Use permission boundaries. Then regularly rotate credentials. Always change your password often. Change your password often, because you never can tell. Somebody have watched you over and over and has been able to see your password, and they log in with your credentials. It is your name that will be attached. We had an issue. One of the clients we provisioned something for last year. One of the staff in that organization, they just noticed that somebody was creating EC2 instance, and not small instances, large instances. They were using it to run Bitcoin operations, right? And this thing was incurring thousands of dollars on the company account. By the time they audit and they checked, it was this user that was doing these things. When they confronted the user, I said he's not the one. That is not the one. But it's his record that is there. By the time they now traced deeper, they saw that okay, the IP address that was attached to where those things were being created was not in Nigeria. The staff is in Nigeria. So which means his password had been compromised. Somebody used it to log in and was creating things. Now that one will not concern the company. It was fired. So regularly rotate your credentials, your access key, your password. You should AWS advise that you should not even be creating access key if you don't need it. Don't create it. If you create, once you have used it, delete it. Right. Then also always monitor and audit regularly. Regularly, always check so that they will not go and be a handicap. Amen. Amen. All right. So let me just use this to summarize everything, right? So we have the IAM, right? This is a user. Hope you can still see my screen and this is clear. Hope this particular slide is clear. Okay, all right. Thank you very much, Rabi Miriam. Okay, so this, let me use it to explain everything I've been saying, or summary of most of what I've been saying. This is a user. The name of this user is Ashish, right? So I create this user and I attach a policy to this user. Now I want you to be taking note of something. So I create this user, I attach policy to this user, Ashish. Now, I now created other groups. I created admin group, I created developer group, I created DevOps group. Now, under admin group, we have Bill. Bill is the user under admin group. Now, see, this policy is not attached to Bill. The policy is attached to admin group. So once Bill comes under this policy, under this group, right? Once he is added to this group, he will automatically inherit the policy of admin group. Now, for developers group, they have Steve, they have Zoc, they have Jeff. These are users. Once these users are added, they will automatically inherit the policy of the developers. Now, if you notice something here, one of these user in the developers group has a policy that is attached to him. So let's say, for example, this user is a developer, right? But maybe it's the head of the developers team. So normally I've given access to the developers team to say, okay, you can create, you can update something on EC2 instance. That is the policy that I have attached to this group, right? Now, all three of them will inherit this. But for Zoc, because he is the head of the software development team, I'm not saying, oh, Zoc, you can delete. Only you can delete. So I will attach only that policy, the policy of being able to delete. I will attach it to only Zoc. So Zoc will inherit both the policy that is attached, the permission that is attached to this group, and his own. He will have both. Hope you understand. Then also we have the DevOps group. Elon and Jack are attached to, they are under the DevOps group. They will inherit the permission of the DevOps group. Now for role, I have my application, right, that needs to access something. I will attach my role. I've attached the policy to that role to say this policy is only to be able to upload something to S3. I will attach that policy to this role and then assign my application that is on EC2 instance to the role, or attach that role to that application. So that's the only permission whatever permission is attached to this role, whatever policy permission is attached to this role is what this application would inherit. I hope that makes sense. All right. So, any questions? I expect that there will be plenty questions. Not really clear. What parts? What part is not really clear? Olabisi Olajumo. Okay. You can type out your questions. There's going to be knowledge check at the end of this class, right? So we have 5 questions that we're going to answer at the end. But first, let's take your questions. I should explain the last part on role. Okay, all right. Let's go back to the slide. Okay. So let me use this to explain again. Or let's go back to the slide on role. Let me use that to explain. So this is, can we see this slide? The one on I am roles. Can you see it? Obadara Adeshayo. Can you see it? Okay. All right. So let's moving on. So I remember I said that a role is what you attach to something to be able to assume a particular duty. Normally, that thing is not something that that person should be able to do, right? And I gave the example of an actor, right? In real life, the person is an actor, but in the film that you want to do, you want the person to assume the role of a an engineer, right? So you need to give the person all the things that the person would use to look like, to appear like, an engineer. That is basically what an I am role is also doing. You are assuming the particular role temporarily, is not permanent. So what you will do is, I have an application that is sitting in my EC2 instance, right? Now that application, right, is supposed to yes, you can upload pictures to that application. You can upload your pictures to that application, and what the application will do will be to edit it. Like this AI stores that we are doing, right? Where you upload your picture and then you need to fine tune the picture to make it, very clear, very clean, right? So now I have that kind of a application. I hosted the application on this EC2 instance. Now, what happens is when you upload your picture, this application, right, is supposed to put that picture in my S3, to save that picture in my S3 bucket so that it can apply the editing and everything. Maybe a lambda function is attached to it, all of those things, right? So you're supposed to save that picture in the S3. But it's an EC2 instance, it's not an S3. Is not supposed to have access to S3 because they are two different services, right? What would I do so that my application will not fail? What can I do so that when you upload picture to my application can send those pictures to my S3 bucket? What I would do is I'm going to write a policy, right? In that policy, I'm going to say allow to put allow, right, to put objects, right, to upload stuffs to this S3 bucket, maybe customers S3 bucket. That's the name of the S3 bucket. That's the policy I will write. Now, that policy, instead of creating a user, I'm not going to create a user. I'll go and create an I am role because this is a temporary thing. It's not like the EC2 instance is going to be doing it every time, right? Is a temporary thing. So I'm going to, this policy that I created, I'm going to attach it to this role. Now that role, the role that is now carrying this policy, I will now attach it to my EC2 instance where my application is sitting on. So that way, whenever you want to upload your pictures, my EC2 instance wants to put it inside this S3. S3 will not say get out. Once S3 sees that this role is attached to this EC2 instance, it will allow it to be putting pictures inside of it. So it's going to assume that this policy will give it the right to assume the role to be putting something inside of this S3. Do we understand? Is that understood now? Olabisi, Olajumoke. Oh, the page is not showing well. For this one, I just showed Abby. Okay, Abadara says understood. All right, thank you very much. So, can we move on? Next question. Um, okay, I'm seeing a question from Tejiri. Tejiri says, for the last diagram for the developers team, since there's another permission attached to ZOC, won't one of the permissions as a group override the other? No, it would not. The only thing that overrides is a role, right? Let's go back to that. Yes. Tejiri, can you see my screen? Can you see the slide now? I'm back to that slide. Please confirm you can see it. Okay. All right. So so this is what I said, right? This policy this policy is not going to override anyone. The only thing that overrides is an IAM rule. If, for example, the example I gave, if I say, okay, Zoc is a developer, right? Is under this developer group. Now, and I want Zoc to go and work under DevOps group for a short while, maybe because they are short staffed or something, or you need to help them do something in their environment, right? Now, instead of creating and putting him, directly again under DevOps, right? I can just create a role like the one I explained earlier. I said roles are temporary. I'll just create a policy, attach the policy to a particular role. Maybe let's call it DevOps role, right? I'll attach that policy. I'll now attach that policy to Zoc. Now, because it is a role that he has to assume, a role overrides your former policy, your former permissions. Once you assume a particular role, you will not be able to operate on your former permission until that role is taken away from you. Until that role is done, you will not be able to use your other permissions. But if it is just a normal user identity based policy that was attached to you, not as a role, not that you are going to go and assume another person's role, right? Or assume another thing temporarily. If it's just that, it's not going to conflict. So what will happen is, I think I gave the example of, if these three people are members of the developers group, right? And Zoc is their team lead. Now, the permissions I have attached to their group is that everyone in the developers group should be able to create EC2 instance, should be able to create Lambda function, right? That's the policy that I have attached to this group. Three of them will automatically inherit it. But Zoc is their HOD, right? There will be instances where maybe they no longer need that EC2 instance that they've created and they need to delete it. But they don't want to give everybody the permission to delete. Why? So that Steve will not go and mistakenly delete an instance that the company is still using. So we're only going to give the permission to delete EC2 instance to Zoc. So I will now write a user policy, not a role, not giving him a role. I'm going to write a policy and attach it to him directly. I'm not attaching the policy to a role. I'm attaching the policy directly to him, to Zoc. If you notice this Ashish here, is not under any group, it's standing as his own. So you can add a policy to Ashish. If Ashish now has the policy of a full admin, maybe he can do everything, and then I now move him right under a group, and now move him to maybe DevOps group. This policy that I've given to him before will follow him and come here. The rest of the team members will not have his policy. The three of them will have this policy, they will have this permission that is attached to the group. Then he will have the extra permission that he was coming with, that was attached with him personally. Personally. Do we get that? So permission boundaries is not explained in this one. So permission boundary is, say for example, right, Tejiri, permission boundary is if, for example, I have already put in this developers group, I have put that allow everybody to do everything, right? Let them be able to create, let them be able to update, let them be able to delete. That's the policy that I have attached to the developers group. All of them will inherit it. So all of them will be able to do everything. Now, I don't want all of them, I don't want any of them to be able to delete. I will now attach a permission boundary to say the only thing they should be able to do is to create and update. I will not put delete. So even though this policy here is reading do everything, if I attach a permission boundary to this group now and says only create and update, that is what they will inherit, except there's a user policy that is attached to ZOC alone separately. It's clear. All right, thank you very much. Any other question? Admin Josiah or Iano, anyone, is there any other question that I'm yet to answer, or we should go into our knowledge check? Our time is, well, 10 minutes 10 minutes to the end of the class. You're welcome, Tejiri. Okay, so no more questions, I guess. Understood? Okay, all right, let's go on. So let's let me now ask my own question. So question one, we have just 20 seconds to answer. 20 seconds. What is the primary purpose of IAM in AWS? What's the primary purpose of the IAM in AWS? A, to manage and control access. B, to create and manage EC2 instance. C, to monitor AWS service usage. D, to automate resource provisioning. Okay. 3 more seconds. A. All right. Okay, so let's find out if we are right. And the answer is, drum rolls, A. All right, so A is the correct answer. The primary purpose of the AWS IAM, that's identity and access management, is to manage and to control access to AWS resources. It's able to control access to AWS resources. So we are right. We can clap for ourselves. Question 2. Which IAM components would you use to grant the same set of permission to multiple users? So if you have multiple users and you need to give them the same set of permission, which of these components are you going to use to give them the same permission? Is it IAM user, IAM role, IAM group, or IAM policy? See. She was sure. Final answer. And the answer is C. Yay. Let me clap for you for. Yay. All right. So let's move on to the third question. Okay. So how does IAM role differ from IAM users? What's the difference between an IAM role and an IAM user? What is the difference? A is roles are temporary and they can be assumed by entities, while users are permanent with fixed credentials. B is users have temporary access while roles have permanent access. C is roles are assigned to specific resources while users can access any resource. D, there is no difference. Levina, is it the question that is not clear on my slide? A. A. Mm. Somebody said C. Okay, A, C, A, C, A, C. Okay, I think the A's are having it. All right, let's see those that got the answer. Somebody else have thrown in B. Okay. All right, so the answer is drum rolls. The answer is A. So I think I kept on emphasizing that um for roles are temporary. It's like you want to act a film. You are not a lawyer. You are not really a lawyer. It's just for the period of acting that film, you have to pretend like you're a lawyer. You have to take on the responsibility of a lawyer. You have to talk like a lawyer. You have to wear lawyer's clothes. You have to go to court and all of those things, right? That is what a role is. You are only assuming that role for a moment. If you attach a role to a person or to a resource or a service, right, they will only assume that role for a moment temporarily. While for a user, I think I mentioned at the beginning that users are permanent. They have credentials. They will have username and password. They are permanent. They have credentials. A role does not have credentials. You don't have username and password for a role, but users will have. They are more permanent than a role. All right. So is that clear? Honor, you can please remind me of the question. I don't know if I missed the question. Please, if you can type the question. Oh, Levina. Okay, let me see. Is there a way I can increase it more than this? Okay, I think I've zoomed in. Is that better? Atinuke, attendance link was pasted earlier around 8 o'clock or past 8, so please check. So the answer for this question is A. So let's move on. Second to the last question. Give me a minute. So this is question 4. All right, I'm trying to zoom in because of Levina. All right, question 4 says, what is a permission boundary in IAM and how is it used? A permission boundary sets the minimum permission that a user must have. B, a permission boundary is a policy that defines the maximum permissions that an IAM entity can have. C, a permission boundary is used to separate different AWS accounts. D, a permission boundary limits access to specific region. What is our answer? I am in there. Okay, we'll take your second option. Okay. A B A B A B A B A B A B B B B. Okay. Okay. I'm coming. I've seen that question. Please, AJ, after this question, please let me to just put it again. But I've noted the question. All right, B. All right, time is up. Okay, let's check. What is the right answer? A permission boundary. The answer is this is not the shape answer. Okay, so the answer is B. The answer is B. I mentioned that a permission boundary is that policy that will define the maximum permission that you can have, irrespective of what is in your I am. I told you it's an intersection of what is in your identity-based policy and what is in the permission boundary. So he puts it in the middle and says, okay, this one says all, this one says not all. You will choose least privilege, not all. This one says all region, this one says not all region. You choose least privilege, not region. So that one in the middle, it's the maximum you can have. It's not the minimum. So a permission boundary is a policy that will define the maximum permission that an IAM entity can have. Our last question for the night. Why is it recommended to use IAM roles for application that is running on EC2 instance instead of add coding credentials, coding like your username and password? So like the example I gave of an EC2 instance relating to an S3. Why are we using a role? Why don't we just create a user and then for the application instead. Option A says because I am rules automatically manage temporary security credentials, reducing the risk of credential exposure. And B says because I am rules offer unlimited permission to all services. C says because hard coded credentials are easier to rotate. D says because roles provide better logging and monitoring capabilities than users. What is our answer? B. Hmm. 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 A, B, A, 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 A. Please, you people should tell me that people are not doing expo somewhere. We hope people are not putting these questions on Google. Let's be true to ourselves. Amen. Okay, all right. Time is up, and the answer is A. Yes, it's better to use an IRAM rule because what you need to do is temporary, right? So IAM role manages temporary access. So instead of creating user and giving password and everything again, managing password that you are at the risk of being exposed, right? Just use an IAM role, basically. So that's the end of our question and answer. Before I wrap up, the question of can a user create an account? Can someone create an account for another user? When you say create an account, create a full AWS account, right? You can create with the person's credentials. But this is the thing. If I want to create an account now and I put my email address, I put my name and my email address. Maybe the intention is to create it for Shegun, but it's my own email address that is there. Automatically becomes my own because it's my email address. It's me that have access to my email address, except I'm giving Shegun access to my email address as well. So you can help somebody to create accounts, but make sure that you are using their own credentials, basically. Hope that answers the person's question. Okay. Can I re-explain the example of use case two again under I am roles? Okay. Let's quickly go back to I am roles. Oh, it's 9 o'clock on the dot. I am role use case two. Okay. I said cross accounts. I think I gave the example of say two companies, right? A or a group of company. A what they call those things? I think they're called groups, where an organization have different subsidiaries, right? So let's say for example, you have subsidiary A, you have Chivita and Co, right? The name of the group is ABC Drinks. So under ABC Drinks, you have Chivita and Co, you have Coca-Cola and Co. Now, Chivita and Co has an application that is running in their own AWS account, a separate AWS account. Coca-Cola and Co has another company that is running in their own AWS account, right? Now, Chivita and Co needs their application to be able to communicate to Coca-Cola and Co's maybe S3 bucket. Now, it will not make sense for Coca-Cola to give Chivita and Co their username and password. So what they can do is they'll just create an I am role for Chivita. So Chivita and Co will use that I am role to go and assume, it will now assume that this person is a part of this organization. So I am role can be used for cross accounts. So it's not, the person is not a user of that account. He has his own account separately. He has his own different AWS account, but he needs to access another account. So rather than giving the person username and password again, the person will just use a role since it's for temporary access. Hope that answers your question. Bodunde Jumoke. I hope that answers your question. Okay, so I think we can call it a night. There is no more anything that we're doing again. All right. So thank you, everyone. It's been a pleasure being here tonight. Thank you so much, everyone. Thank you for participating. Have a beautiful and a wonderful night's rest. You can only create as for Chi Alex Uchera, you can only create policy if you have the permission to. Not everybody have permission to create policy. So depending on the policy the permission that you are given, that means you can create policy. But if you are the owner of the account, sure you can create policy. All right, thank you everyone. Thank you so much. Have a lovely night's rest. Bye.
The world of technology is constantly evolving, which means there's always an opportunity to learn and grow.
My name is Oyebode Esther. I studied religious studies at the University of Ibadan.
My name is Ifeoluwa. I studied cell biology and genetics in the University of Lagos, after which I got a job working in the bank.
My name is Regina Taiwo. You wouldn't believe I studied architecture in school.
I knew there was more, so I decided to take a leap. Currently, I am a product designer and a product manager.
I'm currently a motion graphics designer.
Presently, I am a data scientist and an AWS cloud engineer.
I understand that being a lady is not a disadvantage, so I embrace tech.
And I am thriving as a Texas.
And I am thriving as a Texas.
Now I can say I'm a thriving Texas.
Are you ready to break new grounds and join the world of tech? The Ladies in Tech Africa initiative is a commemorative bootcamp in honor of our visionary, Pastor Mrs. Folu Adeboye, as we join her in thanking God for her 76th birthday celebration. This program is designed to help you make your career shift a reality. Registration is open and you can register via the link on your screen right now.